Purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass House Resolution 162.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 162, resolution calling on the President to provide Ukraine with military assistance to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Ros-Lehtinen, and the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on this resolution.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, sir. As always, Mr. Royce, the chairman of our Committee on Foreign Affairs, appreciates the ranking member, Eliot Engel of New York's leadership in support of the people of Ukraine. Last week, March 18th, Mr. Speaker, marked the 1-year anniversary of Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion and occupation of Crimea. During the past year, Russia has strengthened its hold over the peninsula, expanded its military presence, and increased its oppression of the minority Tatar population and others who refuse to bend to its occupation. Putin's success in Crimea emboldened him to expand his aggression into eastern Ukraine. Last April, Chairman Ed Royce of California, chairman of our committee, led a delegation to Ukraine and traveled to Russia speaking east. The many Ukrainians that Ranking Member Engel and Mr. Royce met with wanted to be Ukrainians, not separatists. Yet Moscow moved to forcibly seizing Crimea, to aggressively supporting militant separatists in eastern Ukraine. Today, Mr. Speaker, the conflict in the east has resulted in over 6,000 deaths, at least 15,000 wounded, and more than 1 million displaced persons. This carnage is the work of the separatist forces controlled by Moscow, which has supplied them with massive amounts of weapons and has even sent in Russian military forces in combat supporting roles. As Assistant Secretary Victoria Nuland testified before the Foreign Affairs Committee this month, Russia, quote, has thousands and thousands, end quote, of soldiers operating in Ukraine. And as she summed up, quote, this is a manufactured conflict controlled by the Kremlin, fueled by Russian tanks and heavy weapons, financed at Russian taxpayers' expense, end quote. Mr. Speaker, the administration's response to this crisis has been tepid at best. 6 months ago, the President of Ukraine stood in this very chamber and, while thanking the United States for our assistance so far, asked for defensive weapons to enable Ukraine to defend itself against superior forces. Pointedly, he told both houses of Congress, quote, one cannot win a war with blankets, end quote, which is what we are providing. Earlier this month, members met with First Deputy Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, who said that his country urgently needs anti-tank weapons, such as the Javelin, radar to pinpoint enemy fire, and communications equipment to overcome Russian jamming. Ukrainian forces cannot match the advanced equipment that Russia is pouring into eastern Ukraine. There is no shortage of the will to fight, only a shortage of defensive weapons. Legal authority for such assistance was made crystal clear by the Congress in December by passing the Ukraine Freedom Support Act. And top administration officials, including Secretary of Defense Carter and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have indicated support. Indeed, this weekend, NATO's top military commander asked, quote, is inaction an appropriate action, end quote? We know his answer is no. Unfortunately for Ukrainians and for international security, President Obama has chosen inaction in the guise of endless deliberation. But there's far more at stake here than the fate of Ukraine, Mr. Speaker. This unprovoked attack on a peaceful country the forcible occupation of its territory, and an effort to unilaterally redraw its internationally recognized borders will undermine the foundation of the international order that was established and has been defended at great cost by the United States and our allies. The world is closely watching what we will do to help Ukraine defend itself from outright assault. If it is too little too late, those with designs on a neighboring country will feel all that more emboldened. The people of Ukraine are not asking for us to fight for them. They are only asking for the weapons they need to defend themselves. I ask our colleagues to vote for this bipartisan resolution, urging the administration to provide this critical assistance to Ukraine before it is indeed too late. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of our time.